Big thing is if they're not customer facing, they're not on the phone all day getting, that next phone call so they can keep their concentration a lot more.
We don't have any issues with people. It's when you're here to work, you're here to work. That's kind of what it comes down to.
Do stuff that requires a license and then let the VAs handle all the back end stuff. And it's also to allow them to be able to take some time off and come back to a desk that's not just backed up for 7 days.
All right, everybody. Well, I'm so excited to be here with two of my really good friends. We've got Andy Priestman and Kelsey from CoverDesk. And as part of your strategic planning for the year, obviously staffing is on everybody's mind, how to scale. So I'm so excited to have them on today to talk a little bit about what virtual assistants are, what they can do, so we can kind of demystify some of it. I know I've shared lots of you guys. I have 7 VAs all through CoverDesk, and we couldn't be happier. And so I don't know if Andy and Kelsey want to take a second, introduce yourself, tell a little history about CoverDesk, and we can dive in.
Sure. So great to be here, Kelly. Thanks for having us. I am the founder of CoverDesk. We started about 6.5 years ago in 2018, really out of a need in my own agency to find talent and fill support roles within our agency and the industry. And I just kind of fell into this business. Never thought I would be in the virtual assistant business. And we started with 20 people, and then here we are with about 1,400 people 6.5 years later. So great team that we have, wonderful people, and the clients just couldn't be happier with our VAs and the services that we're providing. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Kelly, thanks for having us. I'm Kelsey Tanayan. I've been on with CoverDesk for about 6.5 years now since we kicked off. I've also been in the insurance industry for about 12.5 years now at this point. So started on the agency side, and I'm obviously very excited to talk a little bit about what we're doing. So
awesome. Well, why don't we start with the big question that I know I get, you guys get. The big question is, what can virtual assistants do? And what line is that? And I know it could be different in each state. Like Florida, it feels like you can't pick up a phone call without having a license. But, just generally speaking, and maybe come like personal lines, commercial lines. And then we can talk a little bit too about accounting in those 3 buckets, because I know we've had such great success with you guys with us outsourcing our accounting. So maybe let's just start with okay, I'm struggling. I can't find staff, or my team is burned out. What can they do in personal lines?
Well, they can do everything, but not sell insurance or give advice. And so I'll let Kelsey kind of give you the rundown on that. But that's what I always like to say. They could be 90% on the service side. Obviously, the relationship is a totally different thing with the producer or account manager and the people. But we truly believe that we are high level processors, and that we can really be a great extension of the agency and the people working in the agency. So, Kelsey, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about some of those things?
Yeah, totally. So, I think the nice part about this setup too is in most cases when we're talking dedicated VAs, they're set up like a true team member. They're able to be on the phones. They're able to make phone calls out, even if you think, hey, I don't know that I necessarily need them talking to a client. The nice part is the flexibility of them being able to pick up the phone and call an underwriter, call a customer service department, whether they're handling a quote or they're looking at a bill and something doesn't make sense, rather than passing that back to one of your account managers for them to make that phone call. They're able to have that flexibility and actually be a team member. Obviously, in talking to personal lines agencies today, one of the biggest topics is remarketing. I think some people will come in and think, hey, look, they can only, I only want them putting the information in the comparative rater. That is they are able to quote end to end. I'm talking run reports, complete replacement cost estimators, and truly present finalized quotes, whether it's new business or remarkets, to the agency, where the agency is able to turn around and just sell and actually focus on generating new business or retaining their customers versus, putting together, punching in quote data day after day. So those are some of the big ones. And then obviously the in-between of mortgage changes and ID cards, lots of that stuff that you may or may not realize is going on in the agency that your licensed account managers are handling, or it could be passed off to a VA.
And let's talk about, because, you hear a lot of times, oh, my client doesn't want that, or I could never have anybody else quote for me, right? And I always challenge agency owners and that staff. It's like, but you're telling me you're drowning and you're crying at your desk every day. So something has to give and change. One of the things I think that's so great about Cover Desk is, the agency interviews the person. So you get a feeling. You're not just like assigned person, 473. You get to kind of get a feel for them and understand a little bit about how to integrate them to your team. Like they are a team member, they just happen to live in another country. And we preach to all of our clients, like it is a no-no in my agencies I work with. If they say the VA, I said, what's their name?
Yeah.
Right. And I often tell people like most of my VAs have more college education than I do. So there's some really, really top tier talent out there, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the people that we hire are, highly skilled, highly educated. The work ethic is just phenomenal. Very different than, we hire people probably anywhere from 22 years old to in their 40s, but I'd say the average person at Cover Desk is, mid 20s. And, you go hire somebody here and that's 22, like you just, you're probably not going to get a whole lot,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I hope that changes.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think something to really know about from like a training standpoint, because I think it can feel like a daunting task when you're going into this and you're new to the VA world. But one of the things that we do in addition to training, they go through a classroom training. It's all in office, but when they actually kick off with the agency, we continue to provide ongoing training support. There are subject matter experts in the office. Our subject matter experts have anywhere from 3 to 7 years of agency experience, and they are there to sit in next to the VA who may have an AMS 360 question or a management system question or a carrier question. So that ongoing support really helps out a lot in those first 3 months when you're getting this person up to speed on your processes.
And tech support. Like that's huge. Like that's less people that have to maintain. So how about commercial lines, right? Because I think that this is an area where there is so much manual entry in commercial lines. There is so much duplicity. How can VAs support a commercial lines team?
We have lots of commercial lines clients. I mean, they are really the same high level processors. I mean, we're seeing agencies use VAs for submissions, quoting directly in a carrier, or even doing a submission on a court applications and even just sending it to an MGA or a wholesaler or a specialized program. I mean, we even see some agency clients today that are handling very large SOVs, large schedules of property into the millions upon millions. They are handling this obviously with training that came from Cover Desk and that came from that specific client. But you'd be shocked at the level of work that they're doing. A lot of these VAs, although they can't sell and give advice, they really are understanding, how to read a policy, what's in the policy. It's phenomenal. But I'd say from a service standpoint, they can handle certificates of insurance, they can add commercial lines drivers, they can send ID cards, they can really handle everything but selling and giving that advice all the way up to like we see VAs that are actually underwriters that work for us and for the client, whether they're in a retail agency or a wholesale agency, because we do have some of those clients, but they are, most of these agency clients that we have are like, we wouldn't know what to do without them. I don't know, Kels, what else am I forgetting?
Yeah, basics too, like just certificates, policy checking, renewal reviews, even auditing. Like instead of somebody calling a client to say, "Hey, have you completed this or is this done?" They can do those follow ups, chasing late payments, handling invoicing. I mean, there's so much to be done.
Proposals.
Proposals, supplemental applications, accord forms, like all of it. I mean, it's there's a lot of data entry that can be helped out, that they can support them with. And also they, while they're not giving coverage advice to a client that calls in, like they can take client information and put that together for your agent, and your agent's able to follow up and make that introduction and say, "Hey, I'm working on this." They may or may be passing it to the VA, may or may not be passing it off to the VA to actually do the quoting, but they're able to collect that information and put it together for the agent if the agent needs to step out for a meeting or is needing to step away for a minute. So there's lots of options.
I like to think it's like, our experience has been so great where the personality is such a good fit for us, the attitude, the willingness to help. following procedures. And, big thing is if they're not customer facing, they're not on the phone all day getting, that next phone call so they can keep their concentration a lot more. I like to say that our virtual team has made the best processes because they follow them to a T. So we can always find out if there's like a hiccup in a process because they're like, well, this screenshot is off. And I'm like, oh, well, we'll fix that for you, which is great.
Yeah, and they can, I think also when you talk processes and creating those like, SOPs, I've seen a lot of agencies actually get their VA to help create
Correct.
those and write those out because their US team doesn't have the capacity to do it. So it's, you don't have to come in with them. You can create those as you create new processes too.
Yeah, and shameless plug in our agency school, we actually have template processes that agencies can purchase too. And so they can get a starting point of just what should everybody be doing. And you'll find in your own agency, everybody's doing it differently if you don't have a procedure. So that is part of the strategic planning guide too, is just if you don't have processes, getting them, if you do auditing them to make sure they're still good. Let's talk about the accounting side, right? Because this is like this pain point. Agency owners don't have accounting backgrounds. And everybody's in different levels. And I've always said, we've had two bookkeepers. As somebody on your team starts to understand your financials, sometimes their behavior changes. Or, just looking at the detail of it, do you know where all of your money is going? Do you know your P&L? Do you know all your carrier reconciliation? Many agency owners that are startup, they start doing it and it's like they can't stand it. So it sits there forever. Or you lose your bookkeeper, or you're on Applied or AMS 360, and you can't just go down to somebody who knows QuickBooks and teach them insurance accounting, especially in these systems where really, if you're on AMS 360 or Epic, you should be doing your accounting through them because that is one of the benefits of these systems that you do pay a lot of money for. So can you share a little bit about what accounting functionality CoverDesk could work on?
Yeah, so we are basically a managed service provider on the accounting side. So we have somebody that runs our accounting division who's been in the insurance agency accounting industry for the last 30 years or so. Really specialized on Applied Epic and AMS 360 and Hawksoft and EasyLink. So really the main systems that are kind of available in the market we're supporting, and we're supporting our clients and the agencies from a commission reconciliation process, running agency bill, doing bank reconciliations, really anything that has to do with insurance agency accounting, all the way up to even pulling statements to be able to get those bank or those commission reconciliations done, because not every carrier is going to download. So we do have to, sometimes that's the most time consuming piece, is just pulling the statements from the carrier. But we want to be able to provide agencies support on the accounting side, whether you need full-time support or even just 10 hours a month, just to either do the things, as an agency principal that you don't want to do, or maybe you want to free up somebody's time within the agency. So it was designed to like use us as much or as little as you want, or even somebody maybe being out on maternity or paternity leave where you're missing a person for 90 days or 6 months. And so we can jump in that way. And so what's nice is you don't have to train us. We already know the systems and we just jump right in and we do it. Maybe we need to learn a little bit about your process, but we're really doing anything insurance agency accounting. And I would also say, and I'll stop rambling in a second, if you're not using your accounting system in Applied Epic and AMS 360 and whoever else is providing it, I think you should take a serious look at that, because that is like the biggest chunk of what you're paying for in these management systems.
Yeah.
Like I see a ton of people that are using QuickBooks, but they're using the system for all the other stuff. And I think especially if you're like agency bill, even doing a little bit of it, you should be in your management system. But we've been operating for about 2 years on this accounting side. We do all the work in the Philippines, and then we have about 3 or 4 people stateside that are supporting, the 25 people on the team. And it's going really, really well. We're just trying to get the word out. So
Yeah.
I think too, just to add to one thing on, about offloading some of that. Obviously, you don't have to offload all of it. It's kind of a pick and choose. We'll give feedback too. The team is already trained in those systems, and so they will absolutely provide feedback if they see that there's areas where maybe you could shorten this up by eliminating this step. And obviously, we're going to follow what you're looking to see. We're going to make sure we're producing the reports that you're looking to see. And we do write out everybody's workflows for them so that, that's all done. And there's never a point where we come to you and say, hey, the person that's handling your accounting isn't available today. The team knows how to do it. There's always
Yeah.
backup. We're going to hit your deadlines, not, consistently. So it's very
It's
consistent.
super nice. So, when we think about like, I know we've had the conversation, there's a lot of VA companies out there. I know you guys have been in it kind of, in my mind, like the longest, or like at least one of the first pioneers, which is crazy because it's only been, what do you say, 6.5 years, Kelsey, that you've been on. So this industry has not hit maturity just yet, right? Like you guys are still kind of out there, but maybe you could share just a little bit. And I have a couple thoughts on this too, but okay, I'm looking for a VA company. There's all these people. My friend uses this person. I get emails from this person. I see Cover Desk at a conference. Like, what are questions that people really should be asking these companies? Because I feel like people just kind of go wherever they feel the best. And some people have been burned, or you don't get the right hire. And then the whole staff is like, never again, we're never doing virtual assistants ever again. Right.
Yeah.
So, what are things people need to consider when they're looking at it?
So I'll first say this, CoverDesk is an office-based virtual assistant company, number one. We really have invested in 4 sites in the Philippines, and we'll continue to do that with our 5th site, coming on next year. It's super important for agencies to be just very comfortable with the people that are, number one, working in another country, but two, working in an office that's secure, even just having a guard at the door and having a locker to put your personal phone in, and personal belongings with no paper on the production floor. Like I don't hear people talking about that.
No
I don't
cell
hear that.
phones too.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
like,
No
I
cell
was like,
phones
why
on our
can't US
production.
companies do this more? Like, we would
Right.
die without our cell phones, but it's the smartest thing. Like, nobody's distracted.
Yeah, and it's not, I mean, as much as it's about security, but it's also about not being distracted doing your work. And
Yeah.
so it's we trust our people. We don't have any issues with people. It's when you're here to work, you're here to work. That's kind of what it comes down to. But so I don't hear agencies talk enough about, or even like just at shows, like I feel like we're definitely asked all the time about our security and what are we doing, and we have a whole security data center that we don't really keep data in, but we use that just to tunnel from the Philippines to San Diego, and very secure system and firewalls and things like that, because we just can't allow anyone into our system just like any other agency. And we are giving everyone our word that everyone's working in a very safe environment. The computers are owned by CoverDesk, and we're working on our clients' line of business applications. I don't know, Kelsey, what else are we hearing from clients and what they're asking?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to the training, I think that's a huge piece. And then being in the office, the ongoing support and the ability to say, hey, Andy, we want to focus on commercial accord forms and supplemental applications this week. Can your team help out? And we can step in and review work and be there to support the VAs in person. I think that makes a huge difference overall in working with a company.
I mean, I agree. I think that is probably one of our number one differentiators between us and everyone else, is that we have this learning and development team and training team. And so you might go to training for either 4 weeks or 2 months, depending on, we have a new program that goes a little bit longer. But when you're done with the training, let's say you're in a 4-week training or a 5-week training, our training isn't done because you don't learn insurance in 4 weeks. You go into a nesting phase where we have trainers on our production floor that are there to answer the questions on, how do I do this in Travelers, or how do I do this in AMS 360? So they're not having to go to the internal trainer in the agency. And that internal trainer is probably either the owner at some point, or it could be an office manager, operations manager, or even an account manager, or even a couple account managers. So we all know how it is to hire people from day one, zero, not knowing anything about insurance. So I think we really have held hands for many people over time, and we've just turned this into a very scalable process. So, and our clients typically don't just hire one VA. They might get one in the beginning, but they're calling us 6 months later for a second one, or even we actually have an interview process when you choose your VA. And often, over and over, we've found that the agency can't decide on who to pick. So they hire 2, even 3 at the same time. It's
That's
happened
awesome.
over and over. Yeah.
And no,
Awesome.
too, we will try our best to put them together in the office. So like,
Yeah.
it
Like
makes
our
a
whole
big
team is
difference.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Totally.
sure.
So, I think one of the things I always tell people is, why don't you ask how many times the US team goes to where the virtual assistants are? Like I've always Andy's a world traveler. So, I mean, you go over there probably 4 or 5 times a year at a
Probably not as that much, but it looks like I'm there because I'm that long because I
Yeah,
stay
you go for a while when you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm usually there for
and a
like a
half?
month. Yeah, month. Yeah, probably a month and a half. Like during our summer, it's just convenient with my kids being out of school and then
Yeah.
they're off at camps and stuff like that. But we are sending people there quarterly. So Kelsey has been there multiple times. Mark's is there at least once a year. We're sending our QA manager Corey, there as well. And it's very important to us that they feel us, and then it's not just them calling the shots, although they do an amazing job with operations and finance and HR and all the different departments that are there. But we call the shots from an insurance point of view. And then we have a client relationship side as well that's here in the US and then also in the Philippines. But yeah, we're there. I've been there, I feel like all summer, and then we'll probably send somebody in December. And then we're back in February, which hopefully, Kelly, you'll join us for our kickoff party.
Yes. Give me the
And
dates.
yeah, well, it's either February 5th or it's in February. I'll send you the dates.
Yeah, do
save
it.
the dates coming like next week. So, but yeah, we're
My
there.
calendar
They're
always
booked
full
up.
too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, it's a good question because I see all, our competitors, and I'm all about competition. I think there's nothing wrong with that. There's other VA companies, but they just don't have the infrastructure that we have. And then often, some of the owners and managers have never even been to the Philippines, which is just, in my mind, that's a little, I just don't know if I would be comfortable, with that as if I was the client,
Well,
but,
and it speaks to your culture over there, right? Like they have like a vibrant culture. Like this is, I think you shared me recently, you've over 3,000 team members over there. So, when you're looking at the quantity, it's like, hey, they've got 25 years. Okay, great. That's a hobby.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, it just doesn't come. I mean, we hire probably 50 people a month, or more. But I think we're not for everyone. We're really looking for clients that want to be engaged with our people. I've always said from day one, the more engaged you are with your VA, the more success you will have. Hiring a VA is just not going to change your whole agency overnight. Like you've got to it's the same thing as if you were to hire, somebody in your office, but I think you get a little bit more support with our offering from the training to infrastructure and just, monitoring to make sure that you're getting enough work done because most people in an agency have no idea what's on somebody's desk until they write the policy or issue the policy, new or renewal.
Sure.
So,
Well, and I think that, from everybody from knowing that the VA also has a manager at cover desk, right? So a lot of times if there is an issue, you're kind of working with the manager. Like it takes a layer off the agency of just that like day-to-day management of people. Like you're not worried, are they coming in time? Your team is,
yeah.
and just kind of some of those things that I think, concern people. So I'll kind of ask one more question and we'll get you guys back off to running the world.
No, it's okay.
But one question I always have is people always get the pushback, like, well, I don't have my processes and procedures, rather. It's kind of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg.
Mhm.
And I know my response to that. I'm curious, like, what are the major hangups, that you see people maybe not getting started, even though we know, like, all three of us know it's the right thing for them. But sometimes people overthink decisions like this, or they want to make the VA have this great welcome, right? Like, and I understand
Yeah.
that. I think that that's awesome. But I think sometimes we can keep delaying something that's going to give us so much relief in the pursuit of when I'm ready. So maybe you guys can share like what are the 3 biggest hangups and what's your response to that?
I mean, so for one, I always hear people say I'm not ready because I don't have my processes in order. They're not documented and I feel like they overthink what they need because CoverDesk has done this so many times where like if you don't know what you're doing, we're not going to let you sink. Like we have an onboarding specialist, not just that onboards the VAs, but is actually going to onboard the client as well. And so we can help kind of figure out what tasks do you want to take off your plate. And so, this is where our nesting team came in, where they're holding the hands of not just the VA at times, but also of the client to really give advice and say, hey, well, this is, if you need quoting support, let's start on quoting if you're in personal lines, or if you didn't go through our quotes training, you're going through service training. And so I think people overthink that they need to spend a year getting their processes in order and videos and things like that, because we already have like tenured people on our production floor, even licensed people that are on our floor in the Philippines. And then even if you're in Mexico, where that same team is supporting the VAs in Mexico. So I don't know. To me, it's just like pull the trigger and let's figure it out and let's go. Let's go fast. That's just me.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be writing it all out line by line right out of the gate. Like that's not usually the most efficient way to do it. And we always recommend like, hey, look, if you're able to get on a video call and I can share my screen right now with you guys and walk you through a process, can record it and then it can be available to the VA for them to go back to. And as they get familiar with it, they're able to write out those workflows for you guys. And eventually you've got those written out. And when you decide to bring on a second, they're able to help out with a huge chunk of the training, at least on everything that they've been doing for you already, and potentially are able to take more complex tasks that maybe you were hesitant to pass off in the beginning. So
And I always tell people, like, on the processes, it's like, okay, so if you interview and you hire, they go to training for 4 weeks. It gives you 4 weeks just to get some processes together. Like, just do it.
yeah, 10
And by
minutes
the
a
way, if
day.
you hired someone in the US, they still should have processes. So just like there's no time like the present. And I get the fact everyone wants it to be so nice for when this person comes, like it's a reflection of your agency. But I also understand the fact that, like, hey, the right person just comes in and helps out and just wants to be an extra set of hands to make your life easier.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, we have a lot of these tools and SOPs that we've built out over the years. And we're even now helping agencies, kind of build out their processes. So, if something didn't work out with a VA, because that does happen from time to time, maybe they don't get it, or it's just not for them, or there's a personality conflict. There could be anything because we're dealing with people. We scribe everything now, so we're using a scribe
Yeah.
software. And so and it's not just for that. It's when you're ready to bring on your second or third or fourth VA,
There.
like it's all there for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
100%. Is there any other common hangups you think people have that?
I think one of the things that I always like reiterate when I talk about this is like the importance of getting your team involved, because I think sometimes that can be a hang up is like, well, my team's just like, they're worried that the VA is going to replace their position, or, and that's never been the design, is to replace them. It's to allow them to work on stuff that actually generates revenue and do stuff that requires a license, and then let the VAs handle all the back end stuff. And it's also to allow them to be able to take some time off and come back to a desk that's not just backed up for 7 days that they've been out. So I think getting your team involved makes a huge difference, and it working well within the agency.
Well, and I always tell people that, you can't sit here and tell everybody that you're so overwhelmed and then not accept help the way that it's given. Like account managers or pretty like, oh, I'm too busy to sell. Okay, well, here. Oh, no, that's not the kind of help I need. Like, you also have to be open-minded that there are many agencies embracing this, and you have to keep an open mind too of the fact that this could be amazing and awesome and develop a relationship.
Yeah, and sometimes, owners, need to just pull the trigger and not, wait for their team to give them an answer, because I'm telling you, this makes everyone's lives better, happier at work. I mean, been doing it for almost 10 years, even before Cover Desk existed. And, we're seeing agencies that are 100 years old or even older, like using VAs. Like people are adopting this and they're changing their ways. And if yeah, I mean, it's just phenomenal. And I would say too, like if you're can't take phone calls like in the agency and there's not enough, no one's answering the phones because everyone's looking at each other and saying, oh, I'm busy, I can't answer the phone. one of the highest and best uses of a VA in the Philippines or Mexico is to answer those calls. They're multitaskers. And what I've always told people over the years, and I've been very consistent about this, is you can't fake it. Like you call Verizon or AT&T and T, and they might sound scripted, but you can't script insurance. It's
Mhm.
impossible. You got to know the rules, where to send people, all that. And they just do an unbelievable job. So, for those agencies that are just like, we can't get to our phone calls, and everyone wants to answer their phone. The clients want to talk to somebody. They don't want to talk to a phone tree, and then they get voicemail. If you could answer every single phone call in the agency, just imagine, what kind of customer service you'd be giving.
Right.
So,
Well, and I'll
I,
just share, I mean, we promoted 2 of our VAs to managers. They've been with
yeah.
me, I think, one maybe 4 years, another 6 years. And so over time, if you do it right, like then there's a little leader that you have over, that's kind of budding. But sorry, Kelsey, I think I cut you
well, I
off.
was just gonna say the last hang up that I was gonna mention was like sometimes people can get caught up on like it's security. Like I'm worried about giving my
Yeah.
data to this
Yeah.
this person that's outside of the U.S. We work with bank-owned agencies. We work with agencies that are affiliated with credit unions. We fill out giant IT stacks before we even put them on. That security is across the board for every client that's on with us. And like, don't let that be a hang up. At least have the conversation, and we can talk you through what we're doing. Many times, I think we'll find that we've got a lot more in place than many agencies that are out there. A lot more security in place than many agencies that we encounter. So it's definitely worth having a conversation about if that's a hang up.
Yeah, I mean, I completely wholeheartedly agree with that. And if you have teams working remote, there's a whole bunch of cybersecurity you should get into. But if for you guys, like you really do invest in having the best protection and security so that it's a very seamless process. So if people want to learn more and they're inspired and they're like, man, my team's getting burned out, we're struggling finding people, we have to do something differently, right? Or gosh, if I could just take accounting off my plate, this would be amazing. What's the best way for them to learn more about CoverDesk?
They can either go to our website and book a call, or they can email Kelsey or me directly. It's pretty easy. Andy at CoverDesk, Kelsey at CoverDesk, or they can even reach out to you, Kelly,
We'll get them in
and you
touch.
can get them in touch. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you guys. I think that this is such a great opportunity for agencies who haven't gone down this path. And I think that maybe some agencies haven't done it yet, but all agencies know someone who has, right?
yeah.
And it's changed their whole agency dynamic. So I say if you haven't done it yet, now is the time in 2025. And I would even say maybe even hire before it's desperation mode, right? So when your agency's in desperation mode because your accounting person walked out, you feel very overwhelmed. But when you're looking at your strategic plan, maybe it's like, hey, if we grow, we're going to need to hire. Maybe the next hire is a virtual assistant. And a lot of our clients that use you, maybe when someone does leave or they let someone go because they're not performing, they get replaced by someone at Cover Desk, which is like
Yeah, it
the,
happens.
the
We've heard,
ultimate.
yeah, we never really wanted that to happen, but there's this huge talent gap out there with, our industry unfortunately aging out, and it's just, it's the reality. So,
Mhm.
but, I think, everyone should take a look at it, whether it's for you or not. I think you're missing out if you don't even have the conversation. So,
100%. And I love what I'll leave you guys with this. I love what Andy said. Like, I tell my clients, don't ask your team what they think. Because ultimately you're responsible. You're the owner, you're the leader. And what they think, if they don't have well, what's the other option? Like you have to sometimes just be the leader and the boss and say, this is what we're doing. And I need y'all to get on board because we can't find people or our revenue per team member is way out of whack. We need to scale you guys to do the best work. And you guys know in this market, the carriers are pushing more and more work back on agents. So yes, the premiums are up, but the agencies are doing a lot more legwork today than ever before.
yeah, and I would say, like, I agree with you on what next year looks like. I think everyone has renewed their insurance for the last 2 years because there were no options. And
Yeah,
now that options are coming, there will be more work for every agency to do. And I would say don't just hire one VA if you're getting started, hire two, because if one, doesn't work out or you just need extra capacity, it's a lot easier to train two people versus one. So maybe think about getting a little bit overstaffed and getting prepared now before you get into the new year. So
absolutely. And
now's the
maybe
time.
they clean up your data, right? Maybe they clean up your
Yeah.
management system. maybe they help with marketing. Like the nice thing is like there's not this rigid thing of they only do these things. Is they're yours, so you could have them answer the phones when the receptionist is at lunch. You could have them, do a whole variety of different things that makes sense. So, well, thank you guys. This was super fun. I'm so glad you guys got to hang out, and we'll get you a copy of the planner. It's going to release in October, and we hope that all these agencies watching will go out there and get a VA.
Yeah, great. We'd love to meet everyone, and let's get more VAs for the industry, and it will be great. So, thanks for having us.
Thank you
Yeah,
guys.
thanks, Kelly. Take care.